morning everyone, Amy here with Groovy Garments, and as you can see from my stencils over here, today I'm going to be making a maple leaf tie-dye shirt. It's Canada Day on Friday this week, so I thought I could celebrate in style with some tie-dye. So I've already gone ahead and drawn a line on the front here. That's going to be where I'm going to put the big maple leaf on the front. I've decided to put it on just slightly angled just to give it a different look, but I also thought I'd put a smaller maple leaf on the back at the bottom of the shirt. So I'm gonna go ahead and flip my shirt over to the back and just kind of roughly figure out where I think I would like my maple leaf to go. So I'm kind of thinking just the bottom corner. So I'm just gonna place it right there. That looks pretty good. Take my ruler, draw a line roughly down where the center of the maple leaf would be. As always, I'm using a washable marker. It's a great tool for tie-dye. Helps you mark what you want in place, but you can completely, as soon as you rinse it out, it washes off and you're left with just your tie-dye. So placing the maple leaf about halfway, I'm just gonna trace the outer edge here. With my washable marker. Okay. So you can see I've got half the shape drawn out there. So I'm just gonna set my marker aside here and I'm gonna go ahead and fold up the small maple leaf first. So I'm gonna separate the front and the back of the shirt and fold as best I can along that line where I drew there and flatten it out as best I can. And then I'm gonna start at the bottom here and make tiny pleated folds all along this line. Do your best to keep this in a straight line along your folds. I'll show you that as I'm going, and then that will create my maple leaf shape. So I'm just gonna go ahead and fold this up. Like I said, being careful to make sure that as I go, my folds keep that line nice and straight, and you'll see it along the top of the pleats as I go. Kind of have to manipulate the fabric a little bit. Take your time, especially in these little tiny spots when you're going around the corners. Just have to fold the shirt and, like I said, manipulate the fabric so that as you go, you can see that I'm keeping a straight line, or as straight as I can, on my pleats, and that is the outline of my maple leaf there. Like I said, the points and the corners can be a little bit tricky to work around, but I just do my best. As I said in my previous video, I believe that tie-dye is perfectly imperfect. That's what I love about it. Sometimes my shapes are super crisp and really defined, and sometimes not as much, but you can tell what they are. Okay, so they finish up there. Just gonna show you again that I did my best. That line right there is the outline of my maple leaf. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna put an elastic around there, nice and tight as I can get it, to hold my maple leaf shape. I do usually use string, not elastics. I do find the string gives me a much better, more defined shape. But I don't have any string. I've run out and forgot to pick some up. So today it's elastics. You can see I am stretching it as much as I can and really trying to get it as tight as possible along that line. That will be the edge of the maple leaf there. So one of the big differences between elastic and using a string or a sinew is, as you can see, the elastic actually forms quite a wide band, where with the string you can get it a little more defined and a little more exact. And I'm going to outline my maple leaf in black. So I'm gonna go ahead and just sort of work these folds of the pleats that were part of the maple leaf. Just sort of bunch them all in again, and I'm just gonna put another elastic around there. That's gonna give me just a small space to put some black in and give the maple leaf a little bit of an outline. Okay, so I've got both those rubber bands on there, so I'm going to now flip the shirt around and find the line that I put on the front, fold it like I did with the one on the back, so that I just have the front of the shirt. And I'm just gonna kind of work the fabric here, get it nice and flat, so that it's not bunched up on the inside, and I have room to draw my maple leaf on here. So get that stencil out, place it on the line there. And I'm gonna go ahead and draw with my washable marker along the outer edge again. So just like the maple leaf on the back, I'm gonna go ahead and start folding along the line here, doing little pleat folds and trying my best to keep that line nice and straight along my pleats. losing my line a little bit at the front here, so I'm just gonna take a second and try to work these pleats back where they're supposed to be. That's a little better. Maple leaf is a pretty awkward shape. Just takes time and patience, working your way around the shape. Just doing your little pleat folds right along that line there. So I finished folding around the big maple leaf there, adjusting some of these folds to try and get that line as straight as I can. And there you can see what I've done there, and I've tried to keep that nice and straight. So again, I'm going to take an elastic and wrap it nice and tight right along that line. I do keep a couple different sizes of elastics on hand. I have these big ones, which I use to usually do my main outline shape. Sometimes I'll put 2 on if I don't think that it's tight enough. And I also buy these teeny tiny little elastics, which help me do some of my smaller shapes. So again, just like with the maple leaf on the back, I'm gonna bunch it up just under that first elastic there and put another one on so that I can outline it in black and give the maple leaf just a little bit more definition. I do that with a lot of my shapes, give them just a little bit of an outline. Okay, so this end right here is the maple leaf. So, and this is the little one on the back. You can see they actually sort of look like the same sort of bunch. It's just 2 different sizes there. And to make it somewhat easy for the rest of the shirt, I'm just going to go ahead and scrunch it up, and we'll do just red scrunch around the maple leaves. So I try to, when you do 2 different shapes like this, especially one on the front and one on the back, I find that the shirt becomes a very odd, awkward shape. But I just do my best to sort of flatten it out, and I tuck in the tag, and I just start working it and scrunching it so that you're hopefully getting a little bit of the front and a little of the back in the scrunches, and trying to work down those bigger pieces down into the rest of the shirt. I don't usually use elastic bands to do scrunch. Like I said earlier, I do usually use a polyester string, but I'm out of that, so elastics it is. And just do your best. Try to get it under, and oops, sorry about that. And you want to try and get it somewhat tight. So you do want to try to get it around there a couple times, but it is kind of difficult with the scrunch. And again, you just do your best. You get it the way as good as you can, and it's gonna look awesome because it's tie-dye. Keep pressing it and working the fabric and stretch the elastics around. Just do a couple more here, just make sure this scrunch is all good and tight. Okay, so there we have it. We've got our 2 maple leaves here sticking out. Kind of looks like a funky yogurt head. We've got our 2 maple leaves sticking out, and then the scrunch in the middle. So we're gonna have red maple leaves with black outline and just red scrunch. So I'll be back and we'll do some dyeing. Okay, so as you can see, I've got my table all set up ready for the dye. I've got black, scarlet, and red. I thought I'd use my 2 different shades of red for the scrunch part. So I'm just gonna go ahead and slip on my gloves, and we'll get the dye on this shirt here. So I personally find I like to start with my dark colors. Let's give it a little shake before we get going. And I'm just gonna pick it up and move it over here so that if it drips, it's gonna drip where it's not gonna touch the red. But I'm just gonna gently squeeze some black into that space in between the elastic bands to get an outline for our maple leaf. And flip over. We're gonna do the other side as well. I can't speak for other tie-dyers, but I personally find that I like to put my dark colors on first. I find that they help keep the lighter colors in place, if that makes sense. And I have less bleeding of the dark colors into the lighter areas. I find if I put my light colors on first and then add the dark, that I get a lot of bleeding into the lighter colors, and that I don't like that. So I'll set that back down there. Wipe off those couple of spots of dye so they don't get on where I want the red to go. And I'm gonna pick up good old straight red for my maple leaves. Just go ahead and just start squeezing it on that end spot until it's nice and saturated. Get a nice red maple leaf. Okay. And like I said, I'm gonna use the 2 different reds on my scrunch area. So I'm gonna put red on the front here, and then when I flip it over, I'll use the scarlet. But we've got a pretty straightforward die today. Nice and simple, just a few colors. And not a lot of areas where we have to be too careful with keeping the dyes separate and worry about colors running into each other. Top, good and covered. Down the sides, right up to those elastic bands. Okay. And we're just gonna flip it over. The maple leaves are pretty saturated already. You can see I just squeezed all that out from the small one. Not as much from the big one. I'm gonna add just a little bit more red into that one. Make sure it's nice and red. And then I'm gonna take the scarlet, give it a shake. And go ahead and cover the backside. I'm gonna make sure it's fairly well saturated, make sure it's getting down through the layers of all that scrunch. But I also like to see a little bit of color difference and color separation, so not too much. I'll squeeze out that big maple leaf so it's not too wet in the plastic bag. And just show you, there we have it all dyed, our maple leaves with the black outline and the red scrunch for the rest of the shirt. So stay tuned, we'll be rinsing it out later today.